Jai Matha, welcome back to the path of beatific peace. By now, we all heard before Divine Mother's avatar, and after Sri RaMAMBIKA chose to come down to the earth in 1911, with a mission to enlighten the Mother's children from the bondage of Maya. After taking human body, as a child what Mother did was lessons not only to the younger generation, but to all mankind. You are right, only a powerful soul could do this. There are many evidences that confirm Divine Mother, none other than Devi RaMAMBIKA. Now, in this third part, Divine Mother has shown us the purpose of life and how to achieve it. What is sadhana and how is it to be performed, and what is the easiest way to attain the self or realize, which interpreted as Supreme Soul and the individual soul are both complete, and to realize that you are a pure soul, and are separate from the body. We now take you to the third part. The third part is Divine Mother's entry into exalted wifehood. Here is where we all need to listen carefully and adopt in our life. From the age of 16, what was the mysterious quest? Was Divine Mother sadhanas before and after marriage? How did Mother do sadhanas after marriage by not affecting all responsibilities and duties? Did Sri Bhagavan or any of those inmates knew about Divine Mother doing sadhanas, including long hours of meditation even during nights? This is what Divine Mother taught us or showed us, through practical life, what Grahastasramam is all about, and how it must be performed. At the age of 14, Sri Rama Devi was given in marriage to a rich landlord of Telacheri, North Kerala, Sri Krishna Bhagat by name, a man belonging to an aristocratic family and gifted with a high university education. There was a huge disparity in age between Divine Mother and him, a disparity which no father could ever ignore while considering the question of his daughter's marriage. But in the case of Divine Mother's father, it was a divine inspiration, a divine guidance that persuaded him to arrange this marriage. The divine directions came through the instrumentality of a holy personage, who appeared in his dream vision and apprised of her marriage and the mission which she was destined to carry out in her marital life. The dream inspiration of the father was in perfect accord with Divine Mother's own intuition regarding her alliance, and the purpose of her entry into wedding life. Indeed, Divine Mother Sri Rama Devi had the consciousness of a ministry of spiritual enlightenment and moral regeneration of the human society, and it was as if to exemplify the lofty state of the perfection in a sanctified home life that she accepted the role of wifehood, though her mind and soul were immersed in the bliss of a higher life in spirit. At the time of wedding ceremony, a profound spiritual experience came upon her, from which she realized, through a symbolic, celestial vision of her own divine kindship with Shiva, the mystic truth of the eternal union of the divine spouses, known as Shiva Sakti Aikya. With this sublime experience, she secured a profound insight into the spiritual significance behind the institution of marriage and the sanctity of home life, Grahastasramam enshrined in the consciousness of spiritual oneness and adherence to mortal principles. Mother's marital life was an integral dedication to the fulfillment of wifely dharma, consecrated by a deep devotion to virtue and distinguished by unbroken, absolute non-attachment, spotless dispassion to sensuality, all-consuming devotion to truth and meticulous discharge of home avocations. As soul of simplicity, as personification of chastity, Mother embodied in herself all that was best in the age-old tradition of ancient womanhood. Her life was austere, remarkably flawless, beaming with purity and full of intense activity, wholly dedicated to the Supreme. At Telacheri, in her husband's home, Mother's life as an adorable queen of home in the role of exalted wifehood revealed the splendor of a divinity-integrated life, dedicated to the highest and the noblest purpose, namely, the expression of the perfection of the Absolute. Her life of self-resignation showed that consciousness of power could exist along with humility of heart, and that grandeur of wisdom could remain with the grace of devotion to the highest power. Established in the majesty, infinity, aloneness, and detachment of the self, Mother could adopt a theistic attitude sweetened by ecstasy of devotion in her conjugal intimacy with her consort. Her life became a total self-offering at the altar of wifely devotion. The act of self-surrender as illustrated in her life was so unique and unprecedented that the devotion to husband, as forming the essential of Pativrata Dharma, came to be identified with Deja Bhakti, of the highest order, where the husband was adored as the supreme divinity endowed with powers and perfection of the Absolute. Here, Mother could effect a wonderful blending of her supreme devotion to her chosen deity Sri Rama, with loyalty to her husband by an integral vision of the immanent and transcendent aspects of the Supreme Being. In her vision, Sri Bhagavan for her husband is so addressed by her devotees, became perfectly identified with Sri Rama, and hence her wifely devotion signified a spiritual dedication of the highest order. In the perfection of self-resignation, she could achieve a sort of identity consciousness where she could intuit the will, the wishes, the desire, and the aspirations of her husband without any mental effort. No conflict arose between his will and her action. As the detached spirit, she abided in perfect self-sovereignty in the absoluteness of self. As the dedicated soul, she reduced herself into a non-entity by merging her individuality in her consort's personality. To remain as a sovereign spirit in the majesty of fullness, and at the same time to live as a dedicated being in total resignation to husband, this was the acme of spiritual perfection which Mother exemplified in her life in the self-assigned role of wifehood. In altruistic devotion, man is accepted as the highest symbol of the Supreme Being. For Divine Mother Ramadevi, her husband was not a mere symbol of supreme divinity, but the Supreme Being himself. His form was in her sublime vision the Saguna form of Lord, service to him was the worship of the Supreme, his words was divine command, to please him was to propitiate the cosmic power. Her gaze was never at any time directed to any fault, failing or imperfection in her husband. In her ecstatic worship P.F. Sri Bhagavan, she could introduce an atmosphere of India's Puranic past. Around her she created always an atmosphere of exalted religious solemnity, a pervasiveness of pure joy, a love rich in moral excellences, and a sacredness of spiritual dedication. Sri Bhagavan, with whom Mother's life and mission are intertwined, became instrumental in creating conditions necessary for her experience of life's various vicissitudes, and also for exceptional spiritual experiences. Though a man of philosophic temperament, Bhagavan was of independent spirit. He had a dignified disposition and also a saintly humility. At the same time he had a violent temper and very often came under its sway while at home. Even his violent outburst of temper, which would have driven a wife to a state of unhappy existence, appeared in Mother's vision of love as the enchanting attributes of the divine, as interesting aspects of the divine sport. Quite naturally, from the earthly position of a husband, it was not given to Sri Bhagavan to realize the divinity of Divine Mother Ramadevi in the beginning. But from the first day of his contact with her, he could know that she was a powerful soul who had appeared upon the earth for some mighty purpose, a being who was pure beyond compare and not entangled in worldliness. Within the orbit of the power and purity of her divine maidenhood, Bhagwan's mind underwent a radical transformation. A cyclonic purification swept over him. His own statement made before some of his intimate associates in later years reveals the fact that never at any time, since the very day of marriage, could he look upon Mother as his wife. He could see her only as an image of holiness, as an archangel of peace, carrying the message of heavenly love upon earth in sublime humanity. Contact with her in successive years brought about the dawn of new revelations upon Bhagwan. The vitalizing impact of Mother's divinity opened the doors to the perception of sublime vision for him. From the occasional glimpses of Mother's divine personality, he came at last to a settled conviction in the reality of Mother's supreme goodhood. His approach became one of growing surrender to Mother's divinity. The wife emerged at last as the mother and the adorable deity. The husband was exalted to the position of a devotee and a child. This was the glorious consummation of that glorious marital life. Sri Bhagwan lived till his samadhi at a ripe age in the ageless peace of a child, with his illumined mind resting in perpetual contemplation upon Mother's blissful form, illustrating the miracle of Mother's divine power and the glory of his superior devotion. The mysterious quest. Home and its environments provided for Mother exceptional opportunities for mighty explorations into profound realms of spirituality. Though she had the abiding knowledge of the Great Self from her very infancy and therefore, in the true sense of the term, there was no need for any sadhana for Mother. Still, strangely enough, in her 16th year, an irresistible divine urge took possession of her entire being and dragged her into the vortex of rigorous sadhana. What was the purpose of Mother's sadhana and what was the nature her quest? These are questions, difficult to solve, a mystery hard to explain. The goal of all spiritual endeavor, namely abidance in the heart of reality, was, so far as Mother was concerned, a habitual state of perfection with her. But in spite of this state of perfection, this state of supreme poise, there was in her an ever-burning fire of aspiration, as aspiration that arose not from a sense of want, an aspiration not for illumination of mind or for salvation of the soul, but for something revelation. Subsequent event in her wonderful life, her sublime vision and the mystical experiences, reveal to our understanding that her sadhana was really a hide-and-seek play on the luminous plane of spirit, a venture for this discovery of her veiled goodhood. Along with the performance of her multifarious domestic avocations, Mother pursued her quest and did serve sadhana in the solitude of her inner chamber. Long hours of deep meditations and prayers in the silence of nights and also during respite from duties in the daytime characterized Mother's solitary quest. These silent sessions of meditations in the nights lasted for into the nights and sometimes would extend even to hours of dawn. In addition to the systematic practice of meditations, Mother, right from the beginning of her marital life, used to conduct daily worship of sacred Tulasi and observe religious vows like Ekadasi fast, Sivaratri. Her Ekadasi vow consisted of an absolute fast, with air alone as her food and drink, a through vigil throughout the night and a special worship offered to Tulasi. From the very beginning of her sadhana life, Divine Mother displayed an amazing capacity to conceal the deepest aspirations and urges of her heart from the understanding of others. The result was that though she underwent the fiercest ordeal of penance and privation, though she spent nights after nights in Holy Communion, none in the neighborhood, except some of Mother's close associated could knew the magnitude of her sadhana and the austerity of the life Mother lived. Her sadhana of 12 years, distinguished by her wonderful loyalty to steadfastness in the ideal, nishtha. Mother's practice of all the celebrated yogas was perfectly hidden from the gaze of the outside world. In the early years of sadhana, even Sri Bhagwan was unaware of her long hours of meditations in the night, the irresistible yearning of her deep soul, her mad quest of the unknown, the storm that was raging in her bosom for getting the supreme revelation. Outwardly, Mother was busily occupied with her numerous household duties, including the service of her husband. Never at any time did Mother fail in any one of her duties, but in the thick of all these duties and responsibilities, Mother lived in the silence of her soul, alone, detached, unaffected by what happened around Mother, treading the inner path without anybody's knowledge. Mother moved as if her holy feet were not touching this earth. For so many years, no guide came to Mother to prescribe any discipline in spiritually, intuition alone was her guide. From the highest divinity, from her own transcendental personality, came directions from time to time. It was after Mother had already attained to what is called as bhava samadhi, a superconscious state of beatific identity with the deity, that two women teachers, at different periods, entered into Mother's life and initiated Mother into the Upanishadic wisdom epitomized in the Mahavakya, and to the system of Raja Yoga. The gurus, who were adepts in yoga, were themselves aware of the spiritual magnificence of their disciples' personality. One among them even realized that Mother was not merely a perfected being but belonged to the category of the universal teachers, the incarnations of supreme divinity, and consequently held Divine Mother in great esteem and adoration. Dear friends, thank you for listening. Request you all to keep watching RaMAMBIKA channel. And do share, let everybody know Mother's teachings. Jai Matha.